Hi everybody, Will here with this week's interview. It's Doug Carlson. Hi everybody, Will here with this week's interview chair. My buddy Doug Carlson. How's it going, Doug?
It's about average, but I'm happy with that.
Because of the hockey game last night?
Well, that's a factor, but let's be real. No one's perfect. Everybody says like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm great. How are you? I'm happy. I'm happy to hang in that average because
Right.
if I'm great, I got nowhere to go but down.
That's true, I suppose. All right, if you're looking at that way.
All right.
All right, man.
Minnesota sports fan. That's how you got to look at it.
Well, Toronto, brother. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's. How did you get involved in the sport of dogs, and how old were you when you started?
Well, born into it, really. My mom raised Weimaraners. She was like president of that national club for years. She did field trials as well, so I hunted over them as well. But when I first really showed a dog, my first dog was a Labrador that I showed myself when I was 6. And the only reason that stuck is like the first time I was in the ring was actually under Annie Clark. She scared the piss out of me. It's like, because the first word, she comes to go over your dog. How old? I'm like, Jesus.
I'm 12.
I don't know. I'm 6. Oh, the dog. Yeah. But yeah, that was it was local shows around here. That's one of those things that kind of sticks with you, even though you were that young.
Yeah, for sure.
But so I know I got a picture of it.
There, was that your first experience in the ring, Mrs. Clark?
Yeah. Actually, the Labrador with Mrs. Clark. Yeah.
Well, where do we go from there, Dougie?
Well, right. I think my mom probably gave me that just because it was an easier dog to show at the time, And then I guess I passed that test, and pretty soon I was showing all our Weimaraners.
Nice.
And then in junior showmanship and stuff, and then it kind of evolved from there. Where actually to this day, my brother is Stan Flowers' plumber.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Stan was maybe 15 minutes from us, and Stan never had like live-in help, but as a kid, I'd just follow him around and see if they needed help, holding boxers and that's where, my biggest thing is they learned you just watched him show a dog, because back in the day he could put one together. Yeah. And then just be a fly on the wall and listen, all the Larry Downey stories.
Now, did you officially work for Stanley then, or did you just?
Well, he, like I said, he never took at the time they never had live-in help. Mm-hmm. But if depending how much I did, he'd give me a check at the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
And I never that's what's different nowadays. I never thought I was going to get paid. I just wanted to help.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Yeah. Things have changed.
Now you have contract negotiations.
Right. Guaranteed to show so many dogs.
So how long did you work like that with Stanley?
Growing up and stuff, like when I was shown, until I was like able to do like juniors and do more on my own. And I'd always like even help him out afterwards but until then it came to evolve. Like then I wanted more interest in he didn't show anything with like hair, none of the prep work. It was all just ringside. Then I kind of was getting the bug of how to, groom different dogs and trim dogs. So that was all foreign to me at the time. And probably the first really person that introduced me to that. Well, there was a couple like poodle people around here and stuff that I would kind of help because I watch what they were doing. But then some of the weekend shows and did a couple summers with Ken Murray. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I always tried to kind of get a job with him and stuff, but he never had the room. But he was always happy he's like, I'd love to have your kid, but maybe I wasn't quite the right fit. But then on different big weekends, Waukesha, stuff like that, I'd go there and help them, so more weekend stuff. Mm-hmm. But I still learned a lot just from being around that.
How old were you around that time when you were working for Kenny?
God, I was still in high school, so it was like summers and stuff. So, 16-ish.
Yeah.
Because I know I drove there on my own, like the Waukesha on different shows because he wasn't far away,
Yeah. How long did you work? How many summers did you work for Ken?
It was like 2 or 3 summers, I think, probably. Because there's a whole lot of stories there I probably couldn't even tell you.
Have some you can tell me.
But there was a few summers there until then it was where I could actually go and work for somebody. It was like after I graduated and stuff, I was like, looked at college at first, which I eventually came back to, but it was at the Garden when I met Elliot Weiss. Mm-hmm. Same thing. That was kind of a setter connection through Ken.
Sure.
And he was like, he's looking for somebody. So I went, after I graduated and stuff, I packed up and drove out to New York and worked for Elliot.
How was that? How was that a big change for you?
Yeah, it was, but I was used to traveling and stuff, and it was a big. I loved it.
Yeah,
he was a really nice guy, and taught me a lot, and the finer points and stuff like that. Try to, like even like when you were stuffing dogs and stuff like that. You'd be like both hands. I'm like, what? He's like, you can stuff with one and make up stuff off the other or something like that. He's like, because he worked. What I really enjoyed, like especially looking back at over the years, is the lineage. Because he worked for Bob and Jane, right? And then like Stan, for Larry Downey and Ken, for Dick Cooper. So I really respected that. Yeah, I really respected that because they would go into the stories of them being an assistant, and then you could relate to that rather than them just never being where you were at. All those people, all those top handlers, the best ones were right where I was. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
That is cool. And it's something that's overlooked these days with a lot of kids. So they don't realize. Yeah. And I do look at it like a pedigree. Like I remember when Janie did pass away, I thought, my God, she's one of the first people on the pedigree, and then down to all of us, So
yeah.
So you were with Elliot for how long?
It was just like right around like about a year. He went through a divorce, and I left on good terms. It was there was just other things going on there and stuff.
Yeah, and he was basically setters and some terriers, right? He had like Cairns and Dandies too.
Yeah, he had a top Dandy Dinmont at the time, and did some terriers and stuff. But he was really good friends with Fisher, so kind of hang around him and being set up with him and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
That's probably where I first watching Fisher to set up with him and stuff. That's probably where I first got a real taste of terriers, as far as even just being set up next to someone, what goes into getting them ready and all the work and stuff.
How you evolved, because you started off with basically Weimaraners, and I think of you as a terrier guy. So
yeah. Well, Weimaraners, if you can get one of those to hold still and set it up and get it to move, you're a pretty good handler.
That's true.
So that's the handling part of it. Now, that's the handling part of it. Now, if you can do coats and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So how old were you when you were with Elliot then, approximately?
Like 17, 18. Because I just came out of high school. And then after I worked for Elliot and stuff for that year, and then when he was going through divorce, I moved back home, and that's where I decided, I was like, well, if I do want to do anything like this basic business, I went back to college just on a business degree, and worked at a kennel that I knew the lady because she had show dogs and stuff around here and see her at dog shows, and I've actually moved in there and lived there, which is my kennel today.
Yeah, where you are now. Yeah, that's
right. So my grooming room today was my bedroom in college. But, you know, I had a job. I had a place to live. You know, what more do you want? So, you know, I was there. Was there for a couple of years. Worked for her and went to college, and then she had a Portuguese water dog, and she did wire fox terriers. Her husband had the Portuguese, really, and it was this Portuguese water dog that was kind of tough to show. Like, it was afraid of everybody and just this kind of a special needs kind of dog. Well, and then back to one of the poodle people, Angie. That what was his husband's? I'm going to forget his name now. He was with Mary. What's the whippet lady in Minnesota? Man, I'm going to be bad on names today.
You're probably
too many of them
talking to me. You're probably
right. Well, she's a famous whippet lady too, but anyways, there's just because there's so many connections that way, I'll think of it. But anyways, they helped me kind of scissor it because I was kind of foreign to me and helped me get ready. And I was able to, you know, to finish the dog and get him a show. He actually placed in some groups and stuff, and they just thought that was wonderful. And then she's like, I want you to do my terriers. I'm like, I can't trim those. You know, I have no idea.
And what kind of terrier did she have?
She had wire fox terriers.
Yeah.
And at the time, I mean, I know, and I was, you know, I wasn't going to be like, oh yeah, sure. You know, I'm like, it's like, that's out of, you know, you got to know your limitations. You know, I'm like,
right.
Because at the time, Jackie Little was trying to show for her the white hairs and stuff, and same thing. You know, they always needed somebody to trim them, and then Clay had one of hers at the time. He was special in a bitch called Chevy, and she's like, well, if I send you to Clay's, you could learn. I'm like, send me where? so I met him so she was going to a dog show, met him at the dog show, doing the Oklahoma circuit, met him at the dog show, worked for him that week. And then, you know, he offered me a job, and so, you know, that was kind of history. So I was like, all right, so well, I guess we'll learn terriers. So, and then not long after that, moved down there and him and Birgit were still together actually, but just same thing. Maybe it's me going through a divorce. So I got along with both of them actually really good, and we moved the kennel over to Arizona, just like in a warehouse in northern Phoenix there, and was there for a year or so, and then that's when he bought the place he's at now in Paradise Valley. Because I remember moving all the dogs from that kennel over to the new one in the dead of summer, right? And it's the desert, so it's super hot. And he's like, you need to get them there. You know, you have them all packed in the van, trying to do as many as you could. Get them there as quick as you can because it's hot out, and, you know, like blah, blah, blah. So I get like a speeding ticket on one of those, you know, take your picture cameras. I'm like, oh, great. So, but, you know, of course, Clay blamed that on me, so I had to pay it.
So when he first went to Arizona, you said he had a warehouse. He rented the spot
yeah, because because I remember he was like shopping for kennels, basically looking around, which was kind of fun because we looked at a bunch of different ones, and it was kind of fun to go with him and see like some of them that were just a hole. But yeah, he had this. It was like a warehouse district, and, you know, we constantly were changing sawdust and, you know, clean everything. But it was a desert, so everything like dried like fast. You know, you could hose down stuff, scrub it down. By the time you were done, the other end was dry.
That's interesting, though, that how he did that. When I interviewed Clay, it was really amazing how his business sense, and it looks like
so his business sense though, because in Phoenix, that's where his father was at and his brother, and they ran the like the photo finishes and stuff at horse tracks.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
And his dad was really savvy. It was really interesting to meet him. And I think that's where he got a lot of his business sense, because his dad's like, I think it was like part of this settlement money or whatever. He's like, we're going to buy some property out in the desert. And Clay's like, what? He's like, we're going to buy this property. And okay. And then that turned out I don't know if his dad knew or whatever, it ended up being like commercial development. So
yeah, I think he did tell me that story. That's a good.
Did well on that. Yeah. But his dad was super business savvy and stuff. And so it was kind of interesting to see that side of it.
But even on the dog side of the way you went around to all these kennels, that had to be an education as well, really, and for what you eventually did,
Yeah, absolutely. Because not even just that whole mentality, because he was, well, between Elliot somewhat, but really Clay was the one that taught me, and this is what I think is, and the whole same thing with the kennel. He went through all these kennels and, one was just a pit, and I'm like, ugh. And he's like, yeah, but we could do this, we could do that. And my dad was the same way. My dad was in plumbing and heating and did like a lot of renovation stuff and would buy homes and fix them up and things like that. But that's where I got a sense of that and same thing in dogs though, because anybody can be given a dog and show it and stuff. He taught me how to find one, and the same thing went for this kennel. The kennel he ended up buying was just overgrown and this, like, I'm like, geez, he's like, yeah, but this location and, it has a kennel license and we can kind of, you can do what you want, there's going to be some money investing in it because it was hard to work at first, but, he kept making improvements. So yeah, no, that was educational too, really when you're looking back on it.
Well, the correlation, how you said that you may tell you how to find dogs, that's really interesting as well, because a lot of handlers, they have that problem, and it's easy. It's not easy, but you can go find a dog and think, oh, I can do this and do that. But it's finding that right canvas to start with before you venture in.
Well, yeah, because like when I left Clay's and went out on kind of my own, I was in Oklahoma, and that's when you don't have much to show, but you just kind of watch it and stuff. And there was this Welsh Terrier that this lady was showing. And you could tell it was like, he just did everything right. Stood there like a rock, his great coming, his legs just like little pendulums, and was a great little show dog. But was in a horrible condition. It was like, because that was one of his, Clay had so many lines, but one of his he's like, there's more good dogs in bad condition than there are bad dogs in good condition. He's like, you just got to find that dog. Same thing goes back to somebody just giving you a dog that's already been established. But so there was this lady, and I'm like, and I offered, I was like, God, he's a really nice little dog. And she's like, yeah, I'm trying. And like, oh, you mind if I help? So I helped her trim him up and stuff, because I didn't have a whole lot to do. And that's what I enjoyed doing, really, because you spent so many years sitting there holding this dog for Clay to trim. Now I could trim it myself. So we worked on him, in between the breed and the group, on and off, and had her walking him for me. And now I'm flashing back to like, oh, this is what Clay did. It's like, take him down the back. All right, put him back on the table. And then she asked if, she's like, well, do you want to show him the group? I'm like, no, he's your dog. I'm just helping you, And so she goes and shows him the group, and it's Rick Kashudian doing the group. And literally the group comes out, stands, looks at it, comes back around a couple times, and comes back to the lady. And she's like, who's been working on this dog? so she tells him, and so like she gets like a placement or something like that, and she's all happy. And so Rick's telling her, she's like, you need to send it with this kid, blah, 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 how he would do. So that was the best endorsement. She's like, well, he didn't want to show it. And he's like, what? She's like, I asked him to show it in the group. And then he calls me over there. Why didn't you want to show it in the group? I'm like, I didn't show it in the breed. I was just helping her out. So he's like, well, that's the right thing to do. And now if this lady wants to hire you, you take it. I was like, okay. And that lady was Nancy Brooks that ended up with, then she got into Brussels Griffons a little bit. They had some pretty good Griffons, but it was always that, that first one you find, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. How long, we skipped over Clay though. How long were you with Clay?
Like 2.5 or so. It's about that. Almost 3 years. Because I know at the time there was like, because we same thing with the stories, because I give them a hard time. But there was at the time, and I don't know what it is now. I said, name me anybody that's worked here longer than me. and you'd start like naming names. He's like, no, that was only like a year. No, that was like 6 months. Because while I was working there, I started counting. I'm like, Clay, we've gone through like 10, 12 assistants. What's the theme here? Because this is like one of my favorite Clay stories is like after him and Birgit split, and Birgit had Ted was the Westie's name, and he'd like call me over and see all those assistants over there, getting those people to clap for Birgit. Those are good assistants. I'm like, Clay, I can get people to clap for Birgit all day long. The trick is getting them to clap for you. I was like, let's see him do that. He didn't see much of that one. But.
Yeah, I bet that went over.
Yeah. Yeah, like a horrid church.
That's funny.
But yeah, so yeah, we sat there easily and named like 10 or 12 people. And then, so I think Marippi has the record for working the longest, like at over 4 years or something like that. But that was his mentality, sink or swim.
Yeah.
Which it was, it was tough at times, but looking back on it, I mean, you learned. If you didn't learn, you didn't, and he wasn't going to hold your hand, and that was the same thing, holding that dog from the trim. That was, like you said, nowadays, you have somebody hold dogs for you, really, they roll their eyes like, oh, do I have to? Back then it was like, oh, geez, pick me. Do I get to hold it while you sit there? And you just watch them and see why and what they did,
Yeah, well, for sure. So now, were you with Clay? I remember you showing I think it was in Best in Show at the Garden.
So that story. Yeah. So I wasn't working. I had just left shortly after that, and actually, and he even said it that day. We left. I left on actually, good terms and stuff, and kept in touch a little bit, and still do. But I had an Irish Terrier that was doing really good, and the group judge had like never beaten it, and in some pretty good competition and stuff, which was Elaine Rigdon, and Clay knew. She hated. So Clay had like the top terrier at the time, which is Blossom. And as much friends as Elaine was with Clay, she hated Blossom.
Oh no!
I mean, hated it. Never put it up. And that's where Clay was smart. He's like, number one rule is never make fools out of your friends. And he's like, and do your homework. As a handler, he's like, fine. What does that judge like? Bring them what they like. Why bring them something that they don't like, or why show it to them? Sometimes you may have to, but always, do your homework. If this judge likes this type, that's the type you try to bring them. So it's like, no, and he's like, I'd never show it to her because she showed her to her once and she's like, don't bring this to me. So anyways, like, and not that I can prove it but I think he was hopeful I didn't win the breed. So I lost Irish Terriers, and I was just like, afterwards when you got a chance, nothing's ever set in stone. It's like, God, I would have loved to have gotten into that group. I really think I had a chance. And I was, at my setup, just kind of decompressing, and Clay comes by and he's like, don't worry, you'll still have your chance. I'm like, what? I didn't win a breed. He's like, I got a dog for you to show. He's like, I have to show the Lakeland, but I got a Welsh that I really think she'll like. I'm like, all right. So then I'm like, so then I'm in there showing it like all relaxed, because I don't care, and it's only good. And I end up winning the group. Kind of like, it was almost kind of like a surprise. He showed it for best though, but
okay, I knew that. I remember something. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, but that was that scenario. But I had worked for him and stuff like that, and and I knew how he would want that dog shown and stuff though too, and then that because I could have had that one, and same thing. Clay's like, I can take this one if you have somebody for it. He's like, but there was another one. I'm trying to remember how that went. That was kind of related. And I told him, I was like, I like the other one better. And he's like, that's a smart move. He's like, so that was when I got this other Welsh, which that was one of the breeds that even when Clay had one, I don't know why, I was always drawn to that breed. The Welsh Terriers, they were just such mentally and physically and everything sound and sturdy, fun to work on, great show dogs. I liked all the terriers. They were all different challenges, and different carry blues were a lot of fun because it was kind of something out of your element. You could scissor rather because you're pulling all day long.
Yeah. So you're on your own now, and where were you based? Oklahoma.
Then, yep. Yeah. Central location, low cost of living. Yeah. So I lived there for almost like 18 years.
Wow.
I bought Ron Buxton's old kennel.
Okay.
And like I said, it was a great place to be based out of, because you go a lot of different directions. And I always got like a lot of through traffic people, different handlers and stuff, like Bill going to Montgomery, because I was, it was right on I-40 and 35 in the middle of the country. So there's always somebody coming through for something.
That probably made for some good stories too then.
Yeah, right.
So where'd you go from there? So are you campaigning the Welsh now at this point after the garden? Not the one you want.
Yeah. No, I had another Welsh, and he was that's another funny story. So I had another Welsh that was doing really good. And her Rose was her name, and I'm going to forget her name. So who owned or bred the Copper Boots Wee Blasty? Marge McClung. So Marge McClung had this Welsh. That's the one that I liked, and she actually had some. So that's who Clay showed for. Marge was from out east, and that's who Clay had. I kind of knew him when I was working there, but anyway, somebody else owned it. Anyways, she was doing really good, and we go to like Lubbock. There's a 4-day shows in Lubbock, Texas, and Clay is there with Blossom, and I'm showing my dog, and and every time so just to give you a quick backstory on it, what I learned there from Clay, same thing, is every time I won with this bitch, and everybody's like, "Oh, hey, congratulations," or because it was like Maxine Bean and Dorothy Nichols. What was all those like ladies in Texas? Mildred Bryant.
Yeah.
I was telling them all. I was like, I not only do I owe it to this dog, but I owe it to Clay. He taught me how to find it, how to trim it, condition it. He's like, I couldn't have done that without. And I tried to pay my respects that way. So, anyways, fast forward, we're at the show, and he was showing this Welsh that was doing a bit of winning and beat him in the group. He gets all mad, and the next day, try to shorten the story. The next day, I beat him again, and these are under like. It was just a great lineup and stuff for people that have had mine before. And so Clay like blows up at Mildred Bryant or something like that. And they pull, they tell me, they pull him aside and said, "Clay, this kid has done nothing but say he owes this to you. You were a great teacher," and blah, blah, blah. And, so then he's got nowhere to go, and he's all like in a box, and they kind of told me that. And so I was kind of grinning. So it's 4 days. So the third day, I beat him again. And because the second day he said something about that was it. Because the second day he said, "Oh, I've got a plan B," because he brings his new Lakeland out, right? And I beat him the third day with his new Lakeland. So I just couldn't help it. I turned back to him. I said, "You got a plan C?"
It is.
Well, he taught me.
Yeah.
He taught me those. I mean, because he was great at those things. There's numerous stories that, like, we were at the Garden back when Beverly Hills was like the same weekend. Another big show, California. So I flew to New York with like 6 specials. He stayed and showed all the dogs Beverly Hills, and he comes in like on a red eye, right, to show Monday. And I think I had like the Bouvier or something on the table. It was the first day. And Birgit had her Westie on the table that goes like at, 3:00 and it's 9 a.m. And he comes in, looks at this Westie, looks back at me and looks at the Westie and puts it up, looks at the Westie and looks at Birgit. And he's like, "Who's this?" And she's like, Birgit's like, "It's Ted." And then he just keeps walking. I'm like, oh my God, talk about poking the bear. That's where I learned it. So he better like.
That's funny.
Oh my God! Does he look all right? And she just like freaked out. He just smiles and walks away. It's like there's a, and that's one of many, but probably one of the cleanest ones I can tell you. But yeah, so then I was on my own. That was one of the first stories where one of my personal, best wins. It was at a smaller show. Well, it was a decent sized show, but stiff competition. And, right. the guy that taught you, you're starting to prove yourself.
Yeah, it happens. It's the way it goes. It's evolution. So when did you meet Mandy?
Montgomery, actually. She was because I was friends and stuff with Bill and Taffy, and I was showing at Montgomery, and in the mornings, you got to get there super early,
right?
Especially if you have an Airedale, but to get a spot, and you're trimming by headlights, and usually once you get everything settled, you got a few hours to try to stay warm. so you walk around and they're saying hi to people and stuff like that, and I was walking by Bill and Taffy's, and Mandy was working for Jody that weekend. I came down and helped her out, and was talking to Bill and Taffy, and I don't remember who was working for him. Somebody that I was talking to, and I'm like, "Who's that next to you?" and Bill's like, "Why?" He's like, "Why? You want to meet him?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it was this girl sitting there brushing the poodle, and then and he's like, "Well, come by later, and we'll set it up like after the breeds and stuff." I'm like, "All right, great. I'll stop by after we're done showing and watching the groups." And so anyways, I come back by there, and Bill goes to, he's like, "Jody," and Taffy's like jabbing him. He's like, no, the other one. So Bill introduces me to Jody to begin with. I'm like, sorry, I was talking about that one. So I talk, being polite, talk to her and stuff, and then Taffy afterwards is like, "God damn it, Bill."
That's hilarious. So you had to meet Mandy. You get to meet Jody.
Yeah, it took me another day. So, just a little shout out to Taffy for straightening it all out.
Yay, Taff.
Another fellow Canadian.
So what happened from there?
So we just really just kind of hit it off, and kept in touch, and talked for quite a bit. And the next time where we saw each other was the Florida circuit. So that's where and I was still walking that fine line of who's who. It was a little delicate situation, but let's just say it all worked out. I found when we were in Florida on the Florida circuit, I found a friend that I knew would show interest in the other one. So
oh no.
Not quite a bait and switch, but
all right, let's get off something. Yeah,
it all worked
Mandy.
out.
Now let's just skip right to the chase. Now you're with Mandy, and you guys are working together.
Yeah. Yeah, she came down to Oklahoma, and she didn't go back.
So that was Oklahoma. But, when did you guys move to where you are now in Minnesota?
That was 2010, maybe 9-10, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
That's when we moved up there after. Because when she, so when we went through like the legal process, it was switching from INS to Homeland Security. So then that was a big mess, but to do everything, because it was like we actually did, because she actually did all her legal paperwork and stuff before we got married. And then, and we got married when we were still in Oklahoma, but we got married in Minnesota, actually.
Okay.
Because all family and everything up here, and actually true Canadian and, Minnesotan. We got married in December in Minnesota.
Perfect.
But there were no dog shows.
Oh, exactly. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember Mandy from the Winnipeg shows when she was a kid. So Now it's just neat to see how she's evolved as well. It's great. Yeah. How long you have a big kennel there?
Yeah, Shih Tzus were in the prenuptial.
Yeah,
and then yeah, right. So, so that's a whole other season. Keep learning, right? Learn a whole new top knots, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'll support. What do you need? A brush? Here you go.
Yep. Oh my god, yeah, I hate it.
More shampoo. I can go buy that.
I like when they finally taught them to put their heads down on those little little
pillows. Yeah,
yeah. Before holding them for them, yeah. Oh well. So, what are your thoughts on if a young handler were to come to you today and say they wanted to be a handler? What advice would you give them?
Well, advice, what you want to be a handler. Like my advice was, unlike anything, same thing, business, diversify. The more you know, the more breeds you know how to do, the better.
Right.
So, don't get pigeonholed. And, if you want to be a poodle handler, great, you have to like specialize, but, try to learn as much as you can, even if you are like, and to me, that's what made like Clay, even Jimmy Moses, who, showed primarily shepherds, right? But he probably knew more about Pekingese than, 80% of the population because he had to figure out how to beat it.
Right.
So he, the more you know, first of all, and then find somebody that you respect and you like what they do, which is, tough though too to learn from. That's the biggest advice was to me would stay diversified and, go learn the right way. Cause
right.
The shortcuts up front, it's hard to take the shortcuts and then go back and do it right. It's easier. Like Clay would give you the cotton coated, horrible thing to work on in the kennel. This, Lakelands are, I'm like, oh, it's awful. He's like, if you can trim this, the other ones are going to be a cakewalk. If you learn on something that's great coated, you aren't going to know what to do when you get one that's, bad like that. And I'm like, all right.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So you've mentioned Clay and Kenny and even Stanley. Mentor-wise, Elliot, yeah. Mentor-wise, you consider all those guys your mentors, obviously. But is there anybody else?
As far as handling and stuff, yeah, they were, and probably because I spent most time with Kenny, but you look back and it applied to a lot of the other ones, Kenny, and Elliot. It as far as, and that's where I kind of a little bit with AKC as far as the owner handler stuff, which when I was a registered handler, they wanted to promote that, and it came right from them though. Have a good relationship with the breeder. And because that's your pipeline,
For sure.
if you have a good relationship with whatever breed it is, you name it, if you have a good relationship with the breeder, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to, that's your pipeline for having good dogs.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish, they would, promote more as, the bred by,
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can, not to take it the wrong way, but anybody can go buy a dog, with the means, but it takes somebody knowledgeable to go make one.
Yeah, and to keep making them, to be consistent. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Like you probably have mentors out there that don't even know they're your mentors. I know I have. So there's people I've watched from afar and learned from afar. Anybody that rings a bell that you can think of?
That they wouldn't even know it.
Not really, no. Like,
yeah. I mean, I guess maybe I just assume they know it. Maybe they don't, because I was trying to think if there's like anybody else, big that way as far as mentors. But you just observe people, over the years of
exactly. You see what they're doing, and you like what they're doing. You kind of start watching them. It sounds a little creepy, I guess, but I mean, but like I remember sitting back and watching Mrs. Clark judge, and you learn so much just from watching her judge.
Right. Yeah.
That type of.
Well, even back in the day, Teresa Nail and stuff showing dope.
Oh God, yeah.
There was so many different people that way, but yeah, you would kind of, what I went in there is like, you might not like, emulate somebody completely, but you pick out certain things like what he does. I like what Andy Linton did on this. I like what Bruce did on that. I like what Clay did on that. And you find your own, path and style.
Exactly. I think we all do that. I think
Hey, that would work.
Well,
no, that doesn't work so much.
So what's the next step? Do you want to judge, Doug?
I don't want to have it be, how do you put it nicely, where you have to judge.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I think that's kind of it can be a little bit of a rabbit hole. I would like to keep it where it's still, where it's enjoyable, where it's not, you don't want to, it shouldn't be a job.
Right. So are you going to pursue judging then? Are you going to go ahead and become
I've done something. We'll just see where it leads me. Like right now, I've always said this, I got one chance to raise my kids.
Right.
And right now, that's to me is a, critical, crucial part of their lives when they, who knows where life leads you, but when my job's done, which it seems like it's getting closer. Don't tell Mandy because she'll freak out. My son will be driving next year, and that's like get off the sidewalk because here he comes. And then, I've for the last 8 years I've been coaching hockey and doing daddy-daughter dance.
That's
so. But when that's all said and done, I don't know what I'm going to do with all my time and money. Because right now between dance and a goalie kid and coaching, it's holy moly.
Especially a goaltender. Holy jump!
Yeah, I'll make you some good deal on some gently used equipment. But yeah, I mean, if it does go that way, I wouldn't mind, because it would be fun doing, especially the breeds you like, the shows you like, the competition. And I always said judges don't get enough respect for judging, small classes and stuff where they might not have something they can point at, to put it nicely.
Right.
It's fun and easy to judge the big shows where you got choices. I think it's extremely difficult to judge when you don't have anything that you are passionate about. It's like,
because you have to find a winner, right? So
yeah. That's to me, that would be the toughest thing. That's what holds me back a little bit, is doing that.
Does Mandy have the same mindset? Does she want to maybe judge a bit?
She's not comfortable doing it all. She's doing the, I've done a bunch of like top 20s and sweepstakes, and I just did a Brittany futurity around here, and she's doing the sweepstakes at the Shih Tzu National, and we'll see how that goes. She just she knows what she likes. She'll do whatever. She's just not that social type. She's just, I said, just have confidence, but she likes it and enjoys it. And same thing, like the thing, like she won't want to go to dinner or something, but then when you finally go to dinner or a movie, she had a great time. So it's like, it's just getting them going, So
I think you'll both be great judges. So
maybe she will.
Yeah,
I hope so. Yeah.
Sure. All right, I have one last question for you, Doug. Ready? If you were to meet the 20-year-old Doug Carlson, is there any advice you'd give him now?
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin? 20 years when you're 20?
When Bitcoin comes out, buy it.
You're not a Back to the Future. You're not that guy.
Well,
you don't have that kind of. You don't have a sports almanac in your hand.
Oh, damn it. Well, then just learn as much as you can, and assume everybody. And that was always. There's always somebody that knows something you don't.
Yeah.
So find out what that is. It's like, don't assume more than everybody else. That somebody, whoever you're talking to, they know something you don't.
True. I still like buy Bitcoin. Like your Biff off of Back to the Future.
You asked.
That's good. All right, man. It was good catching up with you. I'm glad you gave me this time. So give Mandy my best.
Will do.
All right, brother.
Stay good. Good luck to Toronto.
You too. Thanks, Doug. That was great.
If you like what you're seeing here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget, if you want to get a hold of me at dogshowtips@gmail.com. Or you can go to willalexander.net to find out what's happening in Will's world. And don't forget about the podcast, The Dog Show Drive, every Thursday with myself and Wayne Kavanaugh. Until next time.